All right, so today we're going to learn about multiplying and dividing integers. Now, integers are basically, it comes down to any positive or negative numbers. That's what we're talking about here. So we're going to be multiplying and dividing integers. All right, so it's very similar to multiplying and dividing your normal positive numbers, except with a little twist when we come to there. So we'll start off with the basic stuff. If we had the problem 2 times 6. Now we've learned that's going to be 12. All right, 2 groups of 6 is 12. Now with these rules, with multiplying and dividing, what we have to keep in mind is what we're dealing with. Is it one negative number? Is it one positive number? Is it 2 negative numbers or 2 positive numbers? And that's going to be the rules that we gotta learn. So we're going to start off, if we have, like the example here and what we've learned, 2 positive numbers that are being multiplied or divided, they go by the same rules, that's going to give you a positive answer. All right. Also now, if we have 2 negative numbers, that's going to also give us a positive answer. So if you have 2 positives or 2 negatives, or I like to say if there are 2 of the same, whether they're positive or negative, it's going to be a positive answer. But if you have 1 of each or 1 negative, I'm just going to abbreviate, and 1 positive, that's going to give you a negative answer. All right, so if we go back to the problem that we just did, the 2 times 6, they were both positive, which is going to give us a positive answer. Now, if it was a negative 2 times a negative 6, well, because again, they're both negative, that says 2 negative numbers, gives us a positive answer, so that is still going to be a positive 12. Now here it comes down to, if I have a negative 2 times a positive 6, again, 1 negative, 1 positive, I have a positive 2, or excuse me, I have a negative 2 and a positive 6 is going to give me a negative 12. So the actual math doesn't change. It's always, the 2 times 6 is always going to be 12. It just depends on what's negative and how many negatives there are on whether the answer is going to be negative or positive. And the same thing if you flip the negatives. If I had a positive 2 times a negative 6, that's going to give you also a negative 12. All right. Now division works the same way. So if I had, let's just say, a negative 18 divided by a negative 3, I'll put the parentheses. All right, 18 divided by 3 is 6. And again, they're both negative, so that tells us I have a positive answer. So it's going to be positive 6. All right, if either one of them were negative and one was positive, so we'll say a negative 18 divided by a positive 3. Well, now that I have 1 negative, I have 1 positive, that tells me I'm going to have a negative answer. So it's going to be negative 6. So the math doesn't change really. It's always 2 times 6 is always 12. 18 divided by 3 is always 6. It just depends on what signs you're dealing with. If you have the 2 positive, it's a positive answer. If you have 2 negatives, it's also a positive answer. If you have 1 of each, 1 negative and 1 positive, it's going to be a negative answer. All right, now here's a trick that I like to show my students. All right, it starts with a triangle, and we're going to put a plus sign on top and a negative sign on the bottom. Now, by now, hopefully we should know that if it's positive and positive like here, it really shouldn't be a question of whether it's going to be positive or negative, so it really doesn't work for that. But what it does is you cover up whatever 2 ones are being multiplied. So for example, if we look at our first one here, I have a negative and a negative, so my 2, I'm going to cover up a negative sign, I'm going to cover up a negative sign, and whatever's left over is going to be my sign. So because the positive's left, that means it's going to be a positive answer. If I have it here, a negative 2 times 6, you're going to have a negative that's being covered up, the positive that's being covered up, and now you have the negative sign that's left. That's why it's a negative 12. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a couple examples. I'm going to hope you stop the video. You can try these examples. Stop the video, and then I'll come back and I'll review them with you. So let me write a couple examples for you. So 3, negative 5. And okay, so if you would like, stop the video, take a second to try and do these, and then play it again and I'll go over it. Alright, so now I'm going to go over them and I'll use the triangle as well. So the first one, we have 3 times a negative 5. So if we go to our triangle, 3, which is positive, we're going to cover that up. Negative 5, which is negative, so I'm going to cover that up. So what's left over? It's a negative sign. So I know right off the bat, my answer is going to be negative. All right, and then we just do 3 times 5 is 15. So that's why my answer is a negative 15. All right, we go to the next one. I have a negative 4 times a negative 6. So I'm going to cover up the negative, cover up the other negative. Well, I have a positive sign left over, so that means my answer is going to be positive. All right, so now it's just 4 times 6, which is 24. Same thing on this one. You have a negative 27 divided by a positive 9. So that gets covered up. That means my answer is going to be negative. And then 27 divided by 9 is 3, and because we found our answer was negative, my answer is going to be negative 3. And then the last one, I have a negative 26 divided by a negative 13. All right, negative and a negative, cover them up. Left over is positive. All right, so 26 divided by 13 is just, is just 2. So that's going to give me just a positive 2. I hope you learned something, and please look out for other videos. Thanks, bye.